When Girlfriends premiered on September 11th, 2000, it was a breath of fresh air on our TV screens. A primetime sitcom centering four Black women navigating careers, relationships, and friendships was something television desperately needed at that time. We hadn't experienced that since Living Single aired in 1993. Joan, Toni, Maya, and Lynn were stylish, ambitious, and unapologetically flawed. The show gave us laughter and real cultural moments. I've tried many times to rewatch this show that I love. It's been tough. I've been able to rewatch many of the Four Women Friends shows like Living Single, Golden Girls, Sex and the City, and now squeeze Insecure in there. It had a different formula, but it still relates a bit for me. For some reason, I find it very difficult to watch Girlfriends. Hi, I'm Queen Creative Mix Vixen. If you're new here, hey boo. And if you're not new here, thanks for coming through again. I appreciate you. It has been a long time. Subscribers to this channel know that I have not been here since last year. And I'll talk about that more, why and what to expect going forward from this channel at the end of the video. But for now, let's get into why I now think Girlfriends is the worst TV friend group in history. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but it is a horrible friend group.
I will say this about Girlfriends. All four of us were always puzzled because Joan, Toni, Maya, and Lynn treated each other in a way that none of us in our lives had experienced in friendship. There was a lot of backstabbing, there was a lot of lying, there was a lot of secrets, there was a lot of taking advantage of in a way that none of us in our lives could liken that too. There was a lot of pushback from us as a cast all the time with Mara around like, who treats their friends this way?
So looking back now, it's impossible to ignore one glaring truth about Girlfriends that differs from the other shows that I've mentioned. On the surface, Girlfriends sold itself as a story of sisterhood, but what sets it apart is that the character flaws they each have also manifest horribly in their friendships. Joan, the uptight lawyer, tried to be the glue to hold everyone together. Toni, the glamorous real estate agent, brought sharp wit and bougie flair. Maya, the loud and loyal assistant turned writer, grounded the group with a working class perspective. And Lynn, the free spirited, perpetually broke creative, embodied the wanderer who refused to grow up. Together, they look like a complete set, but beneath the brunches and the heart-to-hearts, the women often treated each other with more cruelty than care. So let's break down the things that made me call them the worst friend group on television. Yeah, I'm just going to stick to that. They're the worst friend group on television. So take Joan. On the surface, she's responsible one, the organizer, the hostess, the friend who wants everything to stay together. She's the one who plans the dinners, reminds everybody about the deadlines, and holds the group to a standard of professionalism and decorum. But beneath the color block power suits, Joan's glue was more like Gorilla Glue, sticky, suffocating, impossible to remove. She inserted herself into every situation, making decisions for everyone, giving advice no one asked for, and offering support only when in line with her vision of how things should be. Her care often came with conditions, criticisms, or unsolicited life direction, and her judgment streak was sharp enough to leave lasting wounds. Jones always positioned herself as the one who knows best, and as a result, her friends' problems became stages for her to perform concern rather than spaces to actually show up and support. She could lecture Maya on marriage and parenting, admonish Lynn for being irresponsible, and correct Toni on priorities, all while missing the emotional cues that her friends actually needed from her. The tendency to prioritize control over empathy is why she couldn't be present when Toni needed her most. You know that moment. In moments of real crisis, Joan often defaulted to self protection, or perfectionism rather than stepping fully into the friendship. Watching now as a grown ass woman, it's clear that Joan's flaw wasn't a lack of care, but the way her care became conditional, performative, ultimately self serving, leaving her friends to navigate their own struggles while she maintained the image of being the pillar that held everyone together. Then there's Toni, gorgeous, iconic, and complicated. Toni didn't just give shade, she delivered emotional warfare with a smile. On the surface, it often came off as cruel, especially towards Joan, Maria, to everyone, honestly. But what the show really explored is how her behavior could have been connected to color, the way societal biases and skin tone and beauty standards shape how she judged and interacted with others. Toni measured people by beauty, status, and perceived desirability, but the show never dove into why or how this affected her relationship, which could have added depth rather than leaving her actions to feel like one note villainy. Even in the moments of crisis, like her custody battle, Toni struggled to let her friends in. But these moments could have been opportunities to explore the pressure Black women face in navigating colorism and societal expectations, rather than portraying her as simply mean. Maya was supposed to be the realest one, the grounded homegirl with the jokes for days and the blunt honesty everyone relied on for perspective. But while trying to rewatch, her honesty often had a sharp edge and her integrity was selective. She dragged Joan's messy dating life while hiding her own mistakes, including cheating on Darnell. That was cheating, y'all. She cheated. She clowned Lynn for freeloading. I probably would have too, but she clowned Lynn for freeloading or being unambitious while regularly leaning on her friends for emotional labor, guidance, and support as well. Maya also had a habit of amplifying group drama. When the group ganged up on Joan, which happened pretty often, she was usually at the front of the pack. Quick-witted and funny, yeah, but lacking the empathy needed to temper her critique. She loved fiercely and stood up for her friends, but she often did so on her own terms. And her loyalty came with strings attached. Being the real one isn't just about speaking your mind, it's about holding yourself accountable, offering compassion, and being willing to be wrong. Maya excelled at calling everyone else out. That was her shit. But really practiced the same honesty with herself, which often left her friends bruised and the group dynamic very unbalanced. Her sharpness, not gonna front, was entertaining, but it also masked a pattern of judgment and selfishness that undermined the very friendship she claimed to cherish. And Lynn, this is my least favorite character. Written as someone who was brilliant, someone who was compelling. She was creative, funny, endlessly charming, and effortlessly magnetic. But her refusal to grow made her exhausting to be around. 5 degrees, but couldn't pay her rent. Emotional support, always on layaway, and yet she carried herself like she was the life of the party. Lynn floated through life calling it liberation, but it was the kind of liberation that depended heavily on the generosity of friends, their housing, their money, their food, and their patience. The initial Lynn character was supposed to be a white woman, and that's exactly how Lynn was giving it up. Very entitled, and everyone was okay with being her savior. Lynn was my least favorite character. Joan housed her. Actually, everyone housed Lynn. Joan has housed her for extended period of time. Maya helped while she was finding herself. Toni also bankrolled their whims. Everyone paid for a lunch, whether it was studio time, travels, social outings. Lynn didn't just need help, she expected it and often demanded it, while offering very little, almost like damn near nothing in return. Her friendship was charming, but it lacked accountability. And when she finally found success in music, her behavior didn't transform. She became prideful, self involved, and even less considerate of her friends' time and energy. Watching now, it's clear that her freeloading wasn't a product of circumstance or struggle. It was an entitlement that she cloaked in humor and artistry, leaving her friends to pick up the pieces while she remained untethered to the responsibilities of genuine friendship. What makes this friend group chaotic isn't just that each woman had her own brand of harm, cruelty, hypocrisy, and dependency layered into the dynamic, is that they all enabled each other. Instead of setting boundaries, they normalized the dysfunction and let it loop for years. Joan tolerated Tony's constant disrespect, hoping love would soften humiliation. Toni stayed embedded in a group she clearly looked down on. Maya's judgment and double standards went unchallenged. Lynn's freeloading became a joke instead of a real conversation about accountability. They loved each other deeply, but that love often manifested as avoidance of conflict without resolution or reconciliation. That's what makes girlfriends both compelling and painful to me now. It shows black women's friendship as messy, layered, human, but almost never healthy. Even their biggest fallout, the end of Joan and Tony's friendship, wasn't about healing, but about resentment. Joan's missing Tony's custody hearing was the breaking point, but it was really years of unresolved madness, selfishness, and lack of true support that made their friendship unsustainable. Girlfriends hold a complicated pace in a cultural imagination. There's no denying that.
Girlfriends came about. UPN, the network, was in trouble. Nobody would touch that network. And I took all the legacy, I treated it as a value and found other people who also saw this opportunity as valuable and led from that place. So typically, if you go back in the pattern of my career, I have made leaps when the industry was changing in a way that felt like, a little bit of the sky is falling kind of vibes.
On the one hand, it was groundbreaking. Four black women, each with distinct personalities and storylines, at the center of a prime time sitcom. That alone pushed against the tokenization and invisibility black women often face on TV. It gave us space to see ambitious, messy, brilliant, stylish women who weren't reduced to sidekicks or stereotypes. But on the flip side, it's that the dysfunction of the friend group also reinforces some troubling narratives. Because Girlfriends was one of the few shows centered entirely on black women at the time, their toxicity risked becoming the representation of black female friendships on mainstream TV. Instead of performing portrayals of loyalty and mutual care, the show leaned heavily into cattiness, betrayal, and competition. The result is unintentionally feeds the stereotypes that black women can't maintain healthy friendships because we're too jealous, too judgmental, or too selfish to support each other truly. Their storylines never truly came back around to be redeeming or something we should aspire to. It is a funny, compelling, cautionary tale with fabulous factions. But unlike Living Single, where the woman argued but ultimately came back to the deep love and solidarity, Girlfriends normalizes function as the default. And because the show never gave us closure, thanks to its abrupt cancellation, that's what happens to black TV, audiences were left with fractured bonds, especially Joan and Tony's friendship. That ending denied viewers a narrative of healing and reinforced the idea that black women's friendships are destined to implode. We didn't get to see friendship experience conflict and hard times and come back around and remind us that the best love story is the one between friends. Of course, part of what makes Girlfriends so compelling is that it refuses to sugarcoat women friendships. It rejects this model of glamorous brunches and unwavering loyalty, instead portraying friendships that are messy, complicated, and sometimes deeply unhealthy. But when you strip away the nostalgia and the cultural significance, the truth is hard to ignore. These women treat each other terribly. And, maybe that's the point. Maybe girlfriends wasn't meant to give us aspirational friendship, but rather mirror for the ways we sometimes fail people closest to us. Watching Joan, Toni, Maya, and Lynn reminds us that friendship is not guaranteed just because of shared history. It requires accountability, growth, care. Without those, even the longest friendships can become cages instead of safe havens. At the time, it's important to note that girlfriends gave us complexity. Black women are really allowed to be as flawed on screen as Joan, Toni, Maya, and Lynn. Their pettiness, ambition, selfishness, and humor reflected world imperfections, not respectability politics. That messiness was, in its own way, liberating, but liberation without balance risks becoming caricature. When dysfunction is the loudest note in the symphony, it drowns out the other quieter truths of tenderness and community care that also exists among Black women. Girlfriends expanded the range of how Black women could be betrayed, but it didn't always show us at our best. And that's actually important. It cracked open the door for richer storytelling, but it also left a legacy of toxicity that writers after it had to correct. The show asks, what if Black women could be as messy as a woman in Sex and the City? But it didn't always answer, what if we could also love each other better? The Women of Girlfriends might be the worst friend group on TV, not because they were flawed, but because their consistency failed to grow into the kind of friendships they claim to be. Their messiness was real, but Black women deserve to be seen as more than a mess. I am interested in what you think about the things that I said before I end this. I really want to know, how do you relate to girlfriends? Do you think they're the worst friend groups in the history of television? Do you have friends like that? If you don't have friends like that, why not? I just want to know. Let's keep this conversation going. Drop that in the comments. So, where the hell have I been? Just a lot of stuff. My camera broke. I also wasn't feeling very creative. I also was thinking about not doing YouTube anymore because I was thinking about the kind of creator I wanted to be, type of content I wanted to produce. And what I realized that I absolutely hate now is reactionary commentary. I do not like creating content that is in reaction to what is happening on timelines via TikTok or threads or whatever you use. I got tired of that hamster wheel of something happening and me having to create something so that what I'm talking about is current or top of mind and having the best hot take. And I just, that the pressure of all of that is not why I ever wanted to be a content creator. That's just not how I want to create. That's just not how I want to produce anything, honestly. I like nice and slow. So with that, I started to think about, what can Miss Vixen be? How can I honor the way I want to create, but still do something relevant for Black women in films? And here is where I land, is that I want this space to be a Black media archive for Black women in films. I want to tell our stories. I want to have cultural commentary in an evergreen way. I want everything I create to not be so topical. I want you to meet my work and it still means something 2 or 3 years down the line, because it's not just a hot take and it's not just a headline for the moment, you know? So those are be the type of things that will be on this channel. No more hot takes. No more reacting to NDRE and Young Miami. None of that will be here. That's not what we'll be doing on Mixed Vixen's YouTube page. I will still engage in some topical things, but I decided that that type of stuff stays behind a paywall. So I do have a podcast called Community Convos with Queen that is on Patreon only, where I do have some of those discussions where it's topical, where it's hot takes, where it's just me talking shit. I also think that Black people need to be better at not creating things for everyone's consumption. We talk about our culture being taken, but then we have motherfuckers on TikTok explaining what quiet on a creek means to white motherfuckers. I don't want to be a part of that machine either. So a lot of those Black cultural conversations are behind a paywall. That's where they'll be. So join my Patreon. Also join my Patreon as a free member. That is where I release my written essays, those are free for the public. Is it point for us to divest from the algorithm control? Algorithms are ruining the world. So even if you don't become a member of my Patreon, become a free member of somebody's Patreon and join someone's newsletter. It is important for creators to have another way to connect with you besides these algorithms, because these algorithms can most certainly cut you off from your favorite creators. So make sure that you are making other non-algorithmic connections with the creators you enjoy. Not just me, all creators you enjoy. So yeah, I'll end with that. That is what you'll be seeing from me going forward. You are enough. You are a bad bitch. Thank you so much for watching this whole video. Also, thank you so much for your patience. If you were waiting for me to drop a video in all of this, I don't know, it's been almost a year. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for having me back. And you stay fly, and I'll see you in the next one.
All of you jealous, ugly bitches can kiss my fabulous, very perky black ass. And yes, William, today, you're one of those bitches.
Thanks so much for watching this video. The conversation doesn't end here, though. If you enjoyed this video, there are a few ways we can stay connected. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok for behind-the-scenes updates, media recommendations, and conversation in between uploads. Become a free member on Patreon to stay connected to everything I'm creating, from upcoming video essays and written essays to reading lists, research notes, and works in progress. It's the best way to never miss what I'm working on. For even deeper conversations, join me on Patreon for my exclusive podcast, Community Convos with Queen, where we unpack culture, politics, media, and the conversations that don't always make it into my videos. And if you're looking for shorter content, subscribe to my second YouTube channel, Community Convos with Queen, for podcast highlights and clips. Thank you for being a part of this digital archive dedicated to preserving, documenting, and celebrating Black women's stories, culture, and history. I will see you in the next video. Bye, boo.